Hey folks, Moderate Cyclist here, bringing you something a little bit different this week. I'm going to do a recap of my experience in the Zwift Racing League finals from this last week, so stay tuned. I'll take you through Zwift Racing League, the format of the finals, and the outcomes from my race in that series. Okay, so for those of you who might be unfamiliar, Zwift Racing League is probably the premier racing event on the Zwift platform. It's run by a third party called WTRL, World Tactical Racing Leagues. This is a pretty close partnership and they work closely with Zwift, which is probably what allows them to run an event of such scale. This thing is huge. There are races all around the globe. Every region is represented, every category in each region is represented, often multiple. So there are often multiple groups in each category. That's how many people are racing in this. I race in the Oceanic division, which is primarily Australia. This is probably one of the smaller footprints in all of the Zwift Racing League, but still there's a really good participation across all of the categories. The categories utilize Zwift's category enforcement system. That means that they have A, B, C, and D. Riders, based on their Zwift category, are able to enter into teams for the different categories in Zwift Racing League. Today's final comes after over 6 months of racing. There are some real hitters in this group. Let me give you some examples. Mark O'Brien won the Melbourne to Warrnambool this year. He also set the all-time course record for the Peaks Challenge this year. Brad Bannister set the all-time course record for the Snowy Classic this year. Not to mention the top 3 of the Australian Esports National Championship this year, and a former contestant from the Zwift Academy Finals, Sam Hill. All right, let me give you the lowdown on today's race. The final is a double header. There are 2 races in one. One of the races is on Glasgow Crit Circuit. The second race is on the reverse of the Glasgow Crit Circuit. Both are points races. There's a little bit of nuance to how points races work. There are points awarded for finishing the race and the place you finish in, but there are also points awarded for segments throughout the race. There are 2 different points. There is first across the line. That means whoever is at the front of the race as you go through a particular segment on a particular lap is going to get points. There is also fastest through segment, which is across the entire race, the person who gets the fastest time through that particular segment. The first race is 5 laps. The critical laps are lap 2 and lap 4. On lap 2, you're going to have a first across the line and fastest through segment point allocation. And then again on the 4th lap, you're going to have the same points allocation. So we're going to see some pretty spicy action on the second lap of this race. The second race only has first across the line points available. So this means that this one is going to operate far more like a scratch race, and it's really just about sitting on the front and holding the front until the end of the race. All right, all gearing up here, ready to go. Everybody in the pen. It's time to get this thing underway. As all Zwift races do, we start with a nice little boost, kicking it up into 500 watts. Just feeling everyone out, making sure that everyone's awake and we're ready to rock and roll. This one starts out reasonably slow, heavy pace, but just gentle. Nobody wants to kind of commit to a break. No one wants to push too hard at this point. The lead out on this one actually rolls you in through champion sprint. So this sprint here doesn't actually count for anything, but this is the sprint that will be used in the first across the line and fastest through segment later in the race. I think it's going to be really interesting to see the impact that the handful of A+ riders are going to have on this particular race. This is probably a good opportunity to take a look at the competition. So there are 3 teams in this final race. Wes 4-star team. This is the World Elite Zwifters team. There's only 4 races in this particular team for the race today, which in theory should be a major disadvantage. But 2 out of the 4 A+ riders, so that's going to be a big boost for this team. Second team is the Ibodzio development team. This is a Polish team in the competition. They do have a full component of 6 riders, but they are led out by 2 A+ riders. although they do have 3 Category B riders in their team for this particular race. So maybe the two will balance themselves out, but still going to be stiff competition. The third is my team, Aero 3. We are the third of the 3 Aero teams in Category A in the Oceanic division. We have full 6 riders today. We have no A+ riders and 1 Category B rider in our midst. So we're going to be kind of fighting pretty hard to compete in against this competition. Hopefully we can utilize our numbers, but that's what the field looks like today. Okay, so now we're approaching the Clyde Kicker. This is actually the first lap, so nobody wants to show their hand too much here. Nobody wants to overcommit and go. So it's all pretty friendly, bunch sticking together. I'm using the draft boost there, you can see. Probably no attacks or actions here. Although you can see there's one rider out the front here, Tambalong. This is a pretty critical moment in the race. So the bunch, no one's kind of making a move, no one's following his move, but he's going. He's laying down on this sprint as though you would be if this was one of the fastest through segment rounds where it counted. Points races are a very tactical game. Each rider has to really play to their strengths. You really have to have a sense of what are the different point categories available and how are you going to have a play against those points. I know myself, my rider style is very much leading to sprinter in these types of races on Zwift, so I try to lean into that. I'm about 77 kilograms. I can generate over 1,000 watts of power, which for this level of competition is a pretty good weight to power ratio. I'm going to be targeting the sprint for my greatest impact in this race. So that means I'm going to have to kind of stay with the pack and conserve my energy so that on those sprint laps, I am a chance at both fastest through segment as well as first across the line. So on lap 2 is where I'm going to max out on the sprint. And then on the 4th lap, where there is another chance, I'm going to have a crack at the climb, the Clyde Kicker, and see if I've got enough legs to get in the top 10 of fastest through segment for it. As the group bunches back up here again, I can see as I'm at the front that he's got a good 6 or 7 second lead on everybody, and he's still putting down the watts. He's throwing out 6+ watts per kilo. He's trying to make a gap here. As we move now, we're starting to round the corner into Champion Sprint, keeping in mind that this is again the first lap. Some riders might get confused here because this is actually the second time through the Champion Sprint. Think that this is the actual second lap, but it's not. It is just the lead up into the beginning of that second lap, that critical lap and tactical lap in this points race. So as we come through here, we can see there's a lot of pressure, a lot of power going down, people pushing out. There's actually another couple of riders that go on the chase of Tambalong and try and get it on his wheel and extend that kind of break. Coming up now on the Clyde Kicker on this critical second lap. With my tactics, I don't want to use too much energy on this one. I'm not having a go for this particular one, but the problem here is that if I get dropped off the group, then I'm not going to be in a great position for the sprint that I want at the end of this lap. So I've got to make pace with the group. Obviously, I can't make pace with the guys who are gunning for it right now. You see them tear off with a feather, but I can't let that elastic band snap. As the rest of the pack moves through, I do need to kind of grab a wheel. I'm putting down, moderate amounts of watts here, just making sure that I don't lose the group. Because if I lose the group, then I'm not going to be able to get back on. Everyone's going to be pretty toasted at this point. And without being on the back of that pack, it's going to be very difficult to get the extra power I need for the sprint, as well as the first across the line points that can come with it. So I managed to reconnect with the bunch right as we're kind of coming up into that final corner before the champion sprint. This is exactly where I want to be. Just sitting pretty deep in the pack, plenty of wheels in front of me, plenty of draft that I can take into this sprint. I do have the Aero helmet, which is exactly what I want. It's the power up that I got early and I kept and hang on to for this time. I hit that power up now. I've got about 6 riders ahead of me. I start putting down the watts. I'm looking to be able to run through this whole sprint at about 900 watts, close to 1,000. I've passed everyone now. I've got one in front of me. I'd love to be able to catch him, but I'm kind of just running out of top end at this point. It does manage to net me the second best time for the champion sprint, which is a good cache of points. I think I also managed to come in around about 4th or 5th in terms of fastest across the line. Problem for me now is I'm fairly toasted. As you saw me come through that segment, I did start at about 195 beats per minute. At the peak, just post the line, I was at 201 beats per minute. This is my absolute threshold heart rate. So I'm in a position where I really just got to try and get that to come back down for me to be able to stick on this pack and continue to put in enough power to stay with the group. Utilizing the draft boost that I have after that line, just trying to save a little bit of energy, get on the pack, stay on the pack, hold my heart rate down at a sustainable level. We still have another 2.5 laps in this race. Okay, coming up now on the end of lap 3, this drops us into lap 4, the other critical lap of this race. So fastest through segment and first across the line points are available again on this lap. Obviously the biggest efforts are going to happen in that second lap that we saw just before, but this is another chance at it. If I understand correctly with the way that the points work, you can actually get in the top 10 of these things twice if you manage to register 2 of the better times on your second and 4th lap. Bunch is still mostly together here, but we do have 3 riders off the front, so that is a bit of a pain in the sense of the first across the line points, because they're going to be mopping up the line share of the points available in that category. Hitting the Clyde kicker now for the 4th time. I did want to have a crack at this, so I am ramping up the power from the very beginning of the segment. Everyone is still having a go. They're putting in whatever they've got left. I think I've got a little bit of extra power here and I am gaining, although I am fading pretty quickly. You can see my heart rate's not getting up as high as it was before. That's a real sign that I'm in a bit of a painful state at this point. I managed to get to the top. It is a PR for me. It's not quite enough. I think it puts me in 11th place for fastest through segment, so that's a real shame. Slightly faster and I might have been able to net a couple of extra points there. Definitely not in the first across the line, especially with the guys off the front. Unfortunately though, I am absolutely cooked at this point, and this is where I kind of get dropped in this race. There are no more opportunities for points other than finishing the race and the place that you finish the race. What I know about myself here is that I really don't stand any chance to getting back onto this group. I don't think I'm going to be able to get into the top 10, which is where the points are limited for finishing the race. So I'm going to conserve as much energy as I can. There is another race to come after this one. My energy's better served there. So race 1 ends with not a lot of change in the lineup from throughout. Wes manages to get 3 riders in the breakaway, getting 3 riders with around about a minute lead on the rest of the bunch. Everyone else largely finishes all together, with a handful of riders straggling behind with a little bit of extra time, including myself. There's not a lot of time in between the races. I think it amounts to around about 5 minutes, an opportunity to take a breather, to rest the legs, to get some water and to try and clear some of that lactic acid before you have to pick up and start again for race 2. Keeping in mind with race 2, we don't have any segment points, we just have first across the line and then the overall race winning points. That is aggregate on the 2 races, so if you've managed to net some time in the first race, that adds to the time that you'll finish at the end of the second race. So those 3 riders out the front are in a great position here to collect the race winning points at the end of race 2. The group who finished in the middle have got a fair bit of work to do to catch that time up. Okay, so kicking off on the second race now, it's very clear from the beginning of this race that there is a fair bit of fatigue amongst the group. Racing these types of races back to back, especially points races where you are outlaying probably a lot more energy than you would in a normal scratch race to try and position yourself in segments, you're going to be tired. It's hard to back this up. As I said, the start is fairly casual, fairly leisurely. Everyone's licking their wounds a little bit. We don't really see any formation of a move during this lead-in period. Again, to reiterate, the critical laps are lap 2 and lap 4, which is where the first across the line segments are available. So there's going to be a fair bit of pressure to be being in a good position on those particular laps. My strategy and the strategy of the Aero team as we go into this one is quite literally just trying to hang on. This one races a lot more like a scratch race. The goal is to just kind of stay with that front pack. If you can manage to stay with that front pack, then you're going to be in a position for points as you come through those critical laps and those critical segments. No sprint segment in this one, just the climb, and that's the reverse glide kicker. Probably the first bit of action comes as we finish the lead in and begin the first lap going under the banner. There is a bit of a push from the leaders. The riders from race 1, Tabalong and the 2 Wes riders showing dominance again, looking to kind of create another breakaway in this one. We have a couple of riders in our team, the Aero 3 team, who are looking to try and push across, bridge and make with that front group. As I said before, it's critical to kind of stay with that front pack to get points in this race. The first notable pain point for Aero 3 in this race, Noah Kerr, you can see there if you look on the ladder, he's stuck. He's got no watts, he's got no kilometers. He's had a mechanical at the start line. His trainer has dropped out, which is a real loss for Aero 3, with Noah being one of the stronger riders in the group. As we hit the pinch preceding the reverse glide kicker, the push is not too hard, but we already have that small bunch that's broken off the top. They're looking to get in there and really cement their position, get a lead on the group so they can just roll in and collect the points. I'm managing to hold the mid-pack at this point, which is okay, but certainly am feeling under duress. Heart rate is already up at 188, which is pretty high for so early in a race like this. As we complete that first lap, coming into the champion sprint reverse, which again I will say is not a critical segment in this race, but it really feels like it is. Lots of pressure as we come through this start line, a lot of power getting put down. To be having to kind of push 600 watts at this time in the race just to kind of hold that mid-pack, that's a lot of pressure, kind of unexpected for a non-critical segment. The strategy here definitely has to be on the Ibozio team to try and make a split, put some of that pressure in and get a few riders across there, trying to, I guess, put a gap in there and get in those kind of lower positions of the first across the line segment points that are available on this lap. For me, I'm just done. I'm done at this point. I'm really struggling to hold this pace and hold these attacks. You can see I'm slowly filtering towards the back. I'm kind of sitting in last place at this point with Noah off the back. As we come to the beginning of the reverse glide kicker, this is where the elastic snaps. So myself and Donnelly and the Aero 3 team, we can't hold this pace anymore. We're off the back. The group is kind of filtering through. There is that competition for those first across the line points. For me and for Donnelly, there's not a lot of action for us left in this race. We're just looking to kind of bring it in, do ourselves proud, finish the race in as much power as we possibly can. Another big notable failing for the Aero 3 team here is where Versi on our team also suffers a mechanical. His trainer seemingly drops out. He was actually well positioned when this happened. He was sort of keeping with that front bunch in line for some of those first across the line points, actually claimed some of those. The cutout happened later in the race. He had to do a fair bit of work behind the scenes, connecting a new trainer in there to try and get connectivity, so he's actually able to finish the race and collect on the points that he's already won across the two. Okay, so that's a wrap, folks. That's the end of the Zwift Racing League final for the Oceanic A plate final. So the results here are quite surprising. We see the Wes team taking out the win in this series, even though they only managed to bring 4 riders to the final. A testament to the strength inside of that team. A bit of a closer battle between the Bodzio development team and Aero 3. Unfortunately, my team, Aero 3, we come in 3rd place out of 3 for this final race. As a bit of a reflection on the final series, being in the Oceanic region with less numbers meant that the divisions of the league were fairly arbitrary and made for not a super exciting competition through the early phases of the final series. The 1v1 format on the scratch race and the team time trial, which were highly impacted by who could manage to get the most numbers to attend the race, was a bit of a shame to be the conclusion of the series for some of those teams. Fortunately, in Aero 3, we were able to glide through into the actual final, and it was well populated and it was an enjoyable event. My other thought or criticism, this is kind of on the category system or in Cat A. It is a real battle of the haves and the have-nots. When you have Cat A plus riders in a race, they are so strong that they can completely disrupt the race. You can see here in the outcome of this race, the Wes team were able to take out the win today, only bringing 4 riders to the race as opposed to the 2 other teams that both had 6. This really highlights the power of those A+ riders and their ability to ride off the front and wattages that are just unattainable to standard A-class riders. We joke in the pens after the race that Aero 3 is very much a A- team, obviously too strong and held out of the category B, but it's a very difficult battle when you're competing in category A. That's all from me here. I hope you enjoyed this format. I'm really thinking about the challenge of what is the most engaging format you can do for Zwift Racing. Obviously there's a lot of different ways and a lot of people and streamers out there do it in their own way, really exploring the opportunities. So if you've watched this point, I would definitely appreciate your feedback. Should we continue down this road? Should we explore alternatives? Please let me know in the comments. Other than that, folks, until next time, see ya!